Anyway, my next guest this morning is 71-year-old Ken Dwan. He's a former Olympic rower from London who got COVID-19 and was in hospital for 3 weeks and almost didn't make it, but is now thankfully here to talk to us about it. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning to you, Matt.
It's nice to speak to you, Ken, and welcome back, as it were. Tell us how you got ill, what the symptoms were, and just about the general progress of your disease.
Well, to be honest, at the beginning, I didn't have many symptoms. I didn't know I had anything wrong with me as such, other than I was feeling tired, and I'd come down for Sunday lunch, which my wife had prepared for me, and basically slid off the chair underneath the table. And I just
this is before you had a drink.
Well, I'd been in that position for many, many times in my life, but not through this reason. And
right.
I laid there, for ages, and
really?
And my wife was sort of saying to me, "You've got to get up. You know, you can't just lay there." And she made me comfortable, and she phoned 999, and I laid there for quite some time. But to be honest, the 999 service was absolutely amazing. I actually laid there from 6 o'clock till 4:30 in the morning, waiting for the ambulance to come.
Because you just couldn't get up? You were
I just couldn't
get up, or she couldn't? Yeah. Wow.
She couldn't lift me. I couldn't get up. I am a big lump anyway, but I just couldn't move. And the ambulance service were amazing. They said to my wife, "If you want us to stay on the phone with you until the ambulance come, we'll do so." And they were just so helpful. And then 2 young girls came in the ambulance, and they got me into a chair and into the back of the ambulance, and off I went then to the Royal Princess Royal Hospital in Orpington. And the minute I walked in that door, everything was marvellous, really. The A&E doctor, who ended up being someone who lived opposite my brother, and she's been described as an earth angel by some people in France. She sort of said to me, "I recognise you," and it turned out that she lived opposite my brother, and the whole of the people in that A&E really, really were great. And then I was sort of rushed into the emergency room and put straight on oxygen. And I was taking 100% oxygen. And I had that for about 5 or 6 days, where they clamp a mask to your face for 10 hours a day, and then you come off for 2 hours. And that's when I went into... What did that
feel like, by the way? You were conscious the whole time, presumably.
You're conscious, and you've got this thing strapped to your face. You can't move your head left, right, up or down, or any which way. You're just stuck with this mask on your face, pumping oxygen into you. And
what were you thinking about?
Well, that's because I'd been in the Mexico Olympics in '68. My mindset went back to my training for that Olympics, which was at altitude, and we had to go in chambers up in the BAC place, where they pumped all the oxygen into the room to take us up to 10,000 feet. And then we had to do circuit training for an hour. And then we came back down to sea level, and then we had to go on bikes and things like that with these oxygen masks on their face. Now, whilst I was laying in that hospital with that oxygen mask on my face, there were people in that ward with me who were ripping the oxygen off their face. They just couldn't bear it. And talking to their loved ones, talking to their daughters and their wives, and just ripping the masks off. And the doctors and nurses were amazing. They were just pleading with them, "Let me connect you, let me connect you. If I don't connect you, you're going to die." And these people were begging the doctors to let them die. And
really?
and I was just laying there watching and listening with my oxygen on. And, 10 minutes later, the curtains would go around them. In would come the people with a body bag, and carried the people out the ward. It was like a war zone. But then doctors and nurses...
Did that happen a lot?
Oh,
did that happen a lot?
Happening every 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes there were people dying in that ward. And the doctors and nurses were pleading with people. And they were so compassionate. And everyone, the doctors and the nurses, willing people to live, you know, to fight them to keep these oxygen masks on. But it was just constant.
Sorry to interrupt. When you saw them coming in, you know, the curtains went round the bed and they came in with body bags. I mean, that must have been absolutely terrifying.
It was very emotional, very, very emotional and sad. You know, there was these people full of life 1 minute, fighting to, you know, but fighting to die. And I just couldn't. That's when my mindset went, well, this isn't for me. This is and my Olympic training came in, and my mindset went to, if I've got this oxygen mask on, and if I'm going to win or be in the final and be in this race, I've got to endure taking in this oxygen because it's part of the training. This is what I've got to do. And in my mind, all I was thinking whilst I had that oxygen coming in was I was in Greenwich Park, running up the hills in Greenwich Park, and which is the training I used to do years ago. And the funny thing, I said to my wife, a song came into my head, and it was Helen Shapiro singing "Walking Back to Happiness," "Walk Away from Loneliness," and that kept going over in my mind every time I had the oxygen on. And then that went on for 5 days, 10 hours on, couple of hours off. And the nurses, I say, they were so compassionate, and my mindset was that way. That's how it's going to be. Well, then they came round and they said, we think you should sign a non-resuscitation paper.
Why do you think they said that to you? Because they thought that you might not.
They were ready to turn the oxygen off, and they'd phoned my wife, and they said, you know, Ken's not responding to taking the oxygen. We're keeping his lungs going, but nothing's happening. He's not responding. And we're going to turn.
Did you know? Sorry to interrupt, Ken. Were you aware of that while you were running your kind of internal Olympics in your memory? Were you aware that things had got this bad?
No. At no time did I ever feel that way. And apart from signing that form, I wasn't aware as it was that close.
Were you not going to sign the form? Did you think about refusing to sign it?
No. I said to the doctors, I'm in your hands. You've looked after me so far, and I'm in your and God's hands. If I'm meant to be, I'm meant to be. And I signed it. I didn't even have any glasses, so they had to point out where I had to sign, and I signed the form. And they phoned my wife up and told her what they were going to do, and I sort of done that, and I left it. I left it with the doctors and the nurses. They know. Did
that feel like signing your own death warrant in a way?
I didn't think of it that way. I just thought it's something that I've got to do because, you know, there are so many other people in that ward that are bad and ill that, you know, if it's meant to be that I'm not going to be here anymore, then look after the people that need to be looked after. That was my thinking at the time. And so I signed. I was quite happy with signing the form and leaving it in their hands. And then for some reason, and that young doctor, who I call me Earth Angel, Eilish, she sort of used to come in and see me before she went on shift every morning, and when she went off shift every night. And that lady didn't stop work. She was constantly on her days off, volunteering to come and work. She just did not stop working. But every morning, every night, she came in and she spoke to me. And she got me. I didn't have a phone, so not only was I in a hospital with no one I knew, no one around me, I couldn't even speak to my loved ones. I couldn't speak to my wife. I couldn't speak to my sons and my granddaughters. And she brought a phone in.
That must have been so tough. That must have been so. Apparently your granddaughter wrote you a letter, is that right?
Yeah, she didn't write me a letter. She wrote Father Christmas a letter. And in that letter, she said, Dear Father Christmas, I don't want any presents this Christmas. And my sister Isla doesn't want any chocolate buttons. Anyway, all we want is our granddad home, which was so moving. And I could then see them on the phone and talk to them. And every day they would talk to me, how are you, granddad? And we're talking about a 4-year-old young girl. You know, out of the mouths of babies are amazing. But that's what she wrote to Father Christmas. The funny side of it was when I did come home, my son took the elder granddaughter out, and she said, Dad, can I have some chocolate buttons? And he said to her, well, what about the letter that was written to Father Christmas? And my elder granddaughter said, I never wrote that. That was Luna. So that soon went out the window. But
Ken, finally, what should people know? I mean, you've been there. You've been to the brink. You've come back again. It's an extraordinary tale of survival. What should people listening know from you about COVID that they might not know?
All I can say from my experience of being in that hospital is listen to the doctors, listen to the nurses, and if you must, if you're in there and you've got oxygen on, endure it, keep it on, because if you take it off, you are definitely going to die. And I said, keep the oxygen on, put up with it, find the happy places in your mind that you can go to that'll help you get through it. And please God, then everyone will live. We'll get through this terrible predicament we're in at the moment, and hopefully everyone will live happily ever after.
Finally, Ken, what's your message to those people in hospital who saved your life?
The message I can only give the gratitude for being here, the love and attention that they give, and the willingness, not only from the doctors, from the ambulance service, from the 999 people, from the doctors, the A&E, going onto the ward, the nurses, the cleaners, the lady that fetches you a cup of tea around in your dinner, and the man who empties the dustbin, who used to come in and talk to me and, do you want a paper today or something like that? The whole of, as far as I'm concerned, the Princess Royal Hospital in Orpington, every one of them are willing everybody to live, and every one of them are working so hard, and they are the heroes. They really are.
They are. And you're fine now? Do you feel a bit breathless now and again? Are you?
I came home 2 weeks ago now. I couldn't walk about 10 yards without sitting down and puffing and panting. Couldn't stand up to have a shave, so I had to sit in the garden and have a shave. But every day you get a little bit better. You get a little bit stronger. I made myself walk around the garden. And we're down to the point now where my wife's getting cups of tea in bed. She mentioned something about a Hoover, and I said, I think that's about 6 months down the line.
Okay, I think I think you're right. Yeah, that's a good excuse. You've got the right excuse there.
Yeah,
Ken, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and amazing recovery, and wonderful stories, and very moving. And I'm so glad you're back. In the land of the living, even without the Hoover. Thanks very much indeed, Ken. Ken Dwanda, who survived COVID-19, former Olympic rower, took us on an extraordinary journey back from the brink there. My name is Matt.